It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. This is going to be my episode predictions for Season 10 Episode 7 called Open Your Eyes. Now, before we even jump into any sort of predictions, the title of this episode alone, Open Your Eyes, does give us some indication or a clue about what we might potentially see in this upcoming episode. Now, to explain that, we have to go to the previous episode. So if you remember, in the previous episode, we had Siddiq having a PTSD episode. And then in his PTSD episode, he hears someone saying, open your eyes. It sounds like it's alpha. It also sounds like it could be beta as well. Maybe both. So that was obviously part of the flashback from Season 9, Episode 15, which was the Pikes Massacre scene. So Siddiq was remembering what he heard, and we've also seen part of what he saw at the barn right before everyone was massacred and decapitated. So going back to what I said in the previous episode, someone told Siddiq, open your eyes. And now this episode, Season 10 Episode 7, is called Open Your Eyes. So that leads me to think that we're most likely going to see an extended cut of what happened at the barn during the Whispers massacre scene. And we might potentially see what Siddiq went through, what he witnessed, and possibly what he had to do. There's speculations that we've talked about before, which is that he had to sacrifice or give up someone's life to save Rosita and the baby's life. So that might be true. And if it is true, or if it's not true, we're going to get a reveal about what actually went down in this upcoming episode. So that's going to be part of it. So that gets me super excited because they've been teasing that for a long time. So I think it's about time for them to reveal that information. Now, looking at this episode in general, I think this episode is going to be concentrated on three big storylines. One is going to be the sickness spreading at Alexandria, and Siddiq is obviously going to be a part of that story, and the reveal about what he did, like I mentioned, may actually tie into what happens in this story as well, which I'll get to. The second storyline is connected to the captured Whisper prisoner and the survivors, mainly Carol and Daryl, interrogating that prisoner. So that's going to be the second part of the story. And the third part of the story is going to connect to Aaron. So we do know Aaron is going to meet up with Gamma in this episode for whatever reasons, and I'll get to that later on in this video. But starting with the captured prisoner. So we're going to see, obviously, Carol and Daryl bringing that prisoner Whisper back to Alexandria after they captured him at the end of, or near the end of last episode. So they're going to bring that prisoner to Alexandria. And if we look at the sneak peek of the next episode, which I will probably do a separate video on, we do know that there's going to be some interesting conflict because the Whispers don't know Lydia's alive, and Lydia is at Alexandria. So it's going to be interesting whether Lydia comes into play and whether this Whisper prisoner is at any point going to see Lydia and what that's going to do. But in terms of the Whisper prisoner, based on the trailer, we do know that he's not going to give up any information. He's going to be very loyal to Alpha and the Whispers, and he's not gonna kind of tell them anything about the Whispers. And again, based on the sneak peek, which I'll do a separate video on, we do know that Lydia does reveal that this Whisper is the one that looks after the Guardians or the Walkers. So if there's anyone who might know where the herd is or Alpha's herd is, it's this Whisper. So I think Carol hit the jackpot with this captured prisoner, and I think if the captured prisoner tells them anything, they're gonna learn a lot of information about where the herd is, and they could use that to potentially destroy the herd. But based on the trailer, again, I don't think that the prisoner is gonna give up any information. So that's extremely interesting, and I think they may actually get to a point where they're not getting any useful information out of this guy, and Daryl might actually have to put him down because they can't release him and they can't just keep him a prisoner. I mean, they can, but I don't think they will. And I think it's going to be Carol who's going to tell Daryl what he has to do, which is kill the Whisper prisoner. Going back to Lydia, I think there might be a situation where Carol might actually use Lydia as a device to have an advantage over the Whispers. And she might actually use Lydia to get back at Alpha in some way, shape, or form. And this does kind of connect to what what is in the synopsis, which I'll get to later on in this video. And as far as the Whisper prisoner stuff goes, I think that's pretty much what we're gonna see. And then the next big part of this episode is gonna be the sickness spreading. So obviously we did get a tease at that, or we got the start of that in the last episode, and I think they're gonna dive deep into that story in this upcoming episode. And I'm pretty sure that there's gonna be some casualties. Some people are gonna die as a result of this sickness spreading. And the first person that dies might actually be the thing that gets everyone on edge, because it's no longer just a simple virus, just a simple stomach bug. This could be very bad for them. And, if they don't contain it in time, or they don't deal with it in time or properly, it could lead to a lot of people's deaths. And that's actually a great segue, because I think Rosita might actually be one of the casualties of the sickness spreading. We do know that she's extremely ill, and based on certain scenes that are in the trailer, I think she might actually be dying in this episode, and she might be getting a remixed version of Andrea's comic death. And I don't think she's gonna make it. Now, I did talk about that on a separate video, and went into detail about what scenes I'm talking about and how she might be getting a remixed version of comic Andrea's death. So you can go check that out if you're interested. Now, to add to this, I think this may be where Siddiq and the reveal of his secret might come into play. I think Siddiq may actually come clean to Rosita about what he had to do at the barn during the Whisper massacre scene. He might reveal this information to Rosita before she dies, in her final moments, sort of thing. So I think that could be how the sickness story connects to them revealing the Siddiq secret story. So that might be a segue between those two storylines. And I think we'll probably get a full and extended cut of the barn massacre scene. And we'll get a reveal about whether Siddiq is actually a traitor, whether he had to kill any of the victims, whether he had anything to do with it or not. So that's going to be extremely interesting. Like I said, they've been teasing that for a long time, so I'm glad that we're finally getting a reveal for that. And then the final story which we're going to get in this episode is Eren meeting with Gamma. Now, we don't know why they're meeting. We don't know, what initiates it, whether Gamma goes to Eren or Eren comes to Gamma. It's going to be extremely interesting to see what happens. Now, Gamma might actually be acting as a double agent for the survivors, and she could be done with the Whispers, or she could be acting as a spy for Alpha. So it could go both ways. So at this point, I think we don't have enough information to know whether it's one way or the other. Now, looking at the synopsis, the plot reads, Carol pushes boundaries that make Daryl uneasy. Now, I think Carol might use Lydia as a device to get back at Alpha, or to have an advantage over the Whispers. And I think this could be the thing that makes Daryl uneasy. And it could create some tension between Daryl and Carol. So that's going to be interesting. The next part of the plot reads, Alpha and Beta have reservations about someone. Someone is obviously Negan. The thing with Negan, based on what we saw in the last episode, created a lot of conflict and tension between Alpha and Beta. And that directly connects to what's said here. Alpha and Beta have reservations about Negan. Alpha trusts Negan at this point, probably, but Beta doesn't. So that creates conflict between them. So that's going to be extremely interesting. So we're obviously going to see Alpha and Beta in this episode, but are we going to see Negan? I don't know whether we are. We might, but I don't think we'll see a lot of Negan, but we might see a little bit of him. But that's pretty much my predictions for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads.